Hello and welcome to Middlesex Moments, the radio show and podcast produced by faculty, staff, and students at Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, the Academic Dean and Campus CEO, and your host for these programs. As always, Middlesex Moments comes to you from the radio and television studios in the Center for New Media, located on the main campus of Middlesex Community College here in Middletown. Today's show, I'm going to do a quick recap of some events that have happened at the college, and we'll look forward to a few things that are happening during the month of October 2018. So later in the show, I'll have with me as my guests Dr. Victor Trier from the History Department here at the college, and Dr. Sarah Hansen, who's the Associate Academic Dean. First up, I want to thank everyone who supported this year's Red Moon Gala, which was held on our campus Saturday, September 29th. We had about 150 people on campus for our 7th annual gala, and I gotta say I'm very impressed with that turnout, considering that it was also the same weekend as the Durham Fair. So many thanks to those of you who took your time out to be with us at Middlesex to help raise about $27,000 toward innovation projects and scholarships at the college. So I said about 150 people joined us, and they were entertained by saxophonist Gregory Sneed and magician Brian Miller, who also gave a really powerful sort of keynote presentation about how things all connect throughout life and how we need to connect with one another to make a better community for ourselves to work and live in. Those who joined us enjoyed local foods, wine tasting, craft beers, and soft drinks. Professor Rick Erickson from our Center for New Media served as the auctioneer for a raffle, a live auction, and a live appeal, which together raised about $15,000 out of the $27,000 that we earned for innovation projects and scholarships at Middlesex Community College. So at this point, I'd like to give a big shout out to the major sponsors for this year's Middlesex Community College Red Moon Gala. Those include WLIS and WMRD Radio, the Follett Bookstore, the official bookstore of Middlesex Community College and all of the community colleges in Connecticut, the Peach Pit Foundation, Piper Veterinary, Ms. Ann Cassidy, Julie Crawford, Insalco, Ms. Patty Ann Vassia, A.R. Mazzada Employment Specialists, Connecticut Rental Center, MILE, the Middlesex Institute for Lifelong Education here at the college, Richard Munoz and Associates, Portland Boat Works, Michelle Salonia, DMD, and former Middlesex President Dr. Anna Wasesha and her husband Richard Kagan. Thank you so much for supporting Middlesex Community College now and always in our service to the students and our community at large. Coming up, there are still some opportunities for you to join some special Saturday seminars we have at the college, and these you can take as what are called non-credit courses just for your general interest, or if you are a college student who are interested in earning 1 credit per course. We have a few courses coming up that might be of interest to you. These are all Saturdays coming up the rest of the semester. On October 27th and November 3rd, we have a course called Do You Really Want to Be a Lawyer? Are you interested in the law but are very nervous about taking law courses? So if you're curious about how to become a lawyer but no idea how to begin, it's never too early to begin preparing. So we invite you to join us for that course. Do You Really Want to Be a Lawyer? October 27th and November 3rd, Saturdays from 9 a.m. until 4:15 p.m. Then later in November, November 10th and 17th, a course in fingerprinting. So this is a hands-on workshop that will expose you to the fundamental skills necessary for documenting, identifying, and developing latent fingerprints. If you take the course, you utilize both chemical and physical visualization techniques, and you'll be playing with things like fingerprint powders, magnetic powders, and lots of different ways to discover sort of the intro to fingerprinting in the criminal justice field. And then finally, our last Saturday seminar course of the semester will be December 1st and 8th, and this is a course called The Mind of a Serial Killer. So if you've ever wondered what in the world a person could be thinking, students in this course will analyze and examine the mind of a serial killer. So students will begin by learning the basics of the criminal law system from what happens from the time of the arrest to the time of the prosecution and conviction. So you'll learn a little bit more about some of the more famous cases in history just to see how the mind of a serial killer ticks. So, once again, do you really want to be a lawyer? October 27th and November 3rd, 9 o'clock to 4:15. Fingerprint Workshop, November 10th and 17th, also from 9 a.m. to 4:15 p.m. And The Mind of a Serial Killer, December 1st and 8th, from 9 o'clock to 4:15 p.m. These are the Middlesex Community College Saturday seminars for our fall semester. So coming up after the break, joining me will be Dr. Victor Trier from the History Department here at Middlesex Community College, talking about a special film showing coming up on October 12th. Middlesex Moments will be right back after the break. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back to Middlesex Moments, coming to you from Middlesex Community College. This is Steve Minkler, and joining me now in studio is Dr. Victor Trier, professor of history at the college. And I asked Victor to join me today because during this month of October, the college is celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. And one of the ways we are doing that is through a very special film showing. On Friday, October 12th at 7 p.m., we'll be showing the film Operation Pedro Pan, the Cuban Children's Exodus. And Dr. Trier is an expert on this subject. And Victor, you were involved in the development of this film through your work on this field.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, in a very indirect way, I interviewed for it 3 years ago. The organization, Operation Pedro Pan Group, actually produced it. I did really little more than interview for it, but I'm the historian in the film, and I was the first one to write a book about Operation Pedro Pan, and it's the one that the organization usually recommends. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, involved to the degree that I supplied the historical knowledge, and I come out in the film as the film's historian.
Correct. So for those who may not know what Operation Pedro Pan was, can you give us a brief summary?
Sure. I mean, early on in the Cuban Revolution, I think people have to remember when Fidel Castro took over Cuba, he did not do so as a communist, nor was his revolution billed as a communist revolution. It was supposed to be a democratic revolution to get rid of an existing dictator. It wasn't until after he took power that he began introducing communism, looked at one way slowly, another way pretty quickly compared to other places, and then there was, of course, mass panic. It turned into ground zero for the Cold War. And a lot of parents especially panicked because, I mean, this was an era that was very dangerous. It was 1959, 1960, 1961. The world had just come off of World War II, where people saw the way the Nazis did things, the way the Soviets were doing things, the way the Chinese were doing things, the North Koreans. I mean, communism meant something. And it meant something for one's family and for one's children and for one's control over one's own life. And so you see a mass exodus of people who had fully expected to return to Cuba during that first wave of Castro-era migration, which would have been from the time Castro took over until the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. And a lot of people fleeing, hoping to go back, but definitely getting out of Cuba. And a lot of them taking their children with them, mostly because of the rumors that turned out to be true, that all the schools were going to be closed down, public and private. Cuba had a lot of small private schools, prestigious ones, not so prestigious ones, but that they were going to open new state schools where everyone would be required to go, which would be, of course, focused on communist indoctrination and radicalism, all of which happened. And so there were many people who left motivated by getting their children out of there. Operation Pedro Pan, I always say, were those children whose parents could not get out of Cuba, but who had a means to get their children out of Cuba through this program, through this airlift of Cuban children. It began in late 1960. There's a whole history behind how it got started, which is explained in the film very clearly. And in the end, around 14,000, a little bit more, children were sent via this airlift. Half of the children had relatives in the United States already, so they went directly to those relatives. The other half had to enter the Cuban Children's Program, which was a large child refugee program established mostly by the Catholic Church and Father Brian Walsh, funded by the U.S. government. And Father Walsh's vision was if this refugee crisis happens, which it did, and he predicted it, the children should go to agencies of their faith. So he headed the Catholic Welfare Bureau, and then there were agencies for Protestant children and Jewish children. 90% of them were Catholic, so it was mostly the Catholic Welfare Bureau that was involved. And they set up a network of Catholic foster homes, group homes. They sent kids to Catholic boarding schools, wherever they could, because they couldn't all fit in Miami. At first, the plan was to keep them in Miami. But these camps immediately became so crowded that they opened another camp, and there was a point where there were so many kids coming in that they had to rely on this network that they built to send some of these kids away. A lot of them, a disproportionate number of the Pedro Pan kids, were teenage boys, who were, of course, the most vulnerable in Cuba, because those are the ones that the government was going to go after immediately. But the closing of the schools, the radicalism in the street, the radicalization of the youth, all played a very big role. And for one reason or another, these parents couldn't get out. Number of reasons. They might have had a relative in a prison, a sick parent. There were, or mostly they didn't get the documents to leave, because the U.S. Embassy closed in January 1961. Previous to that, which is when my family left, you could just go to the U.S. Embassy, get a visa, tourist visa, and when you get to the United States, you ask for asylum. But once the U.S. Embassy closed in January 1961, you couldn't do that anymore. And so the U.S. government allowed for visa waivers to be used. And they issued over 400,000 of them by 1962. And basically a visa waiver waives the visa requirement. They were never meant to be issued in that number. They were to be used for emergency cases only, but it was a loophole. But to get a visa waiver, you had to have a first-degree relative in the United States. That relative had to purchase it, send it to you in Cuba. But for the children between 6 and 18, Monsignor Walsh was given permission by the State Department, to his own surprise, to issue visa waivers himself on Catholic Welfare Bureau letterhead. He sent around 12 of them into Cuba. They were copied in Cuba and distributed widely all across the island, given to Catholic schools, to local ex-politicians, were in a million different places. And then it was discovered early on that the Cuban government accepted a visa waiver with a copied signature. It didn't have to be an original one. And so as long as the kids had the visa waiver, and they were also giving visas to Jamaica with the British government and all of that as well. But if they had the visa, they had the plane fare, and they had a space on a plane, then they could leave. And getting a space on the plane was more difficult than one might imagine, because all the way, even though the U.S. Embassy closed in January 61, there were still regular commercial flights between Cuba and the United States until the Cuban Missile Crisis. Most of the people who came on that wave came on those flights. But there were so many people leaving Cuba that it was almost impossible to get a seat on an airplane. And many times they took the luggage off the airplane and asked people on board to carry children on their laps. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, there were the mad rush to get out of Cuba would, one of the things that characterized it, the desperation. And of course, almost 60 years later, people are still taking desperate measures to leave Cuba.
Sure. So this film, Operation Pedro Pan, The Cuban Children's Exodus, is directed by Carlos Gutierrez, mm-hmm. And it's actually produced and sanctioned by the Operation Pedro Pan group
Correct.
In Miami, their historic
mm-hmm.
committee.
Right.
This is the first time this film has been shown in the Northeast, I believe.
Yes, and the film hasn't been out for that long. The film was released, the first showing was last November of 2017. It's been making the rounds to different universities, et cetera, mostly in Florida. And so I invited them to come here, and they accepted, and they'll be up here next week showing the film for the first time in this part of the country.
That's terrific. And the film features several people who themselves were Pedro Pan children, now
Correct.
Obviously a few years older.
Right.
But they're going to be here bringing the film and actually participating in a panel
right.
discussion with you.
That's
and
right.
So who's featured in the film?
Well, featured in the film are Dr. Carlos Eire, who's a professor of history and religious studies at Yale University. He's a renowned expert, global expert on religion, especially in Europe in the 16th century, the Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, etc. But he's also a Pedro Pan child. And, he comes on the scene in the early 2000s when he published his book, Waiting for Snow in Havana, which is way outside of his field. They were his personal memoirs. And, of course, he is a magnificent writer. I call him the Victor Hugo of the Cuban exile community. Mm-hmm. And it was magnificent. He wrote this book. It won the National Book Award, which is almost like a Pulitzer Prize. And so he speaks frequently about Pedro Pan. So he's coming up. Carmen Valdivia, who's the executive producer of the film and also past president of Operation Pedro Pan. She came when she was, I believe, 13 or 14. And Carmen Romagnach, who's also a past president of Operation Pedro Pan Group and currently the vice president. And so we're going to have a roundtable session after the film. I don't know how long it'll last, but I think people are going to be very curious. And all three of those people all four of us are in the film.
Okay.
So.
And the film, again, Operation Pedro Pan, the Cuban children's exodus, will be shown here at Middlesex Community College at our main campus, 100 Training Hill Road, on Friday, October 12th at 7 o'clock in Chapman Hall. And it's a free film open to the public.
It's a free event. It's open to the public. And I can tell you, I've seen the film. I saw it last November when it opened in Miami. And it's really, I was surprised by how good it was. I didn't think it was going to be the quality that it was. I was really surprised. So I think anybody who sees it is going to enjoy it tremendously.
Okay. No, and I look forward to that. And I know we've got quite a few invitations out, and that's another reason to speak about it today on the air with everybody.
And this is an invitation as well, inviting the whole community to come out.
Absolutely. I'd love to have you. So again, Operation Pedro Pan, the Cuban children's exodus, a free documentary film screening in recognition and celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month here at Middlesex Community College, Friday, October 12th at 7 o'clock. So Victor Trier and I will be back after a short break. Stay tuned for more Middlesex Moments. Middlesex Community College, your future, in Middletown, Meriden, and online.
So the reason I chose the Middlesex Veterinary Technology program was because of all the opportunities it had with Piper Olson Veterinary. There's no other place where you would have access to that. I would definitely recommend Middlesex to anybody who's interested in that career because you're going to be 100% prepared to start your job. That is really empowering.
Welcome back to Middlesex Moments. This is Steve Minkler coming to you from Middlesex Community College with my guest Victor Trier. And joining Victor and me in the studio now is Dr. Sarah Hansen, Associate Academic Dean at the college. How are you, Sarah?
I'm good, thank you.
Now, tell everybody, you are recently have become a doctor. In what field and where did you study?
Sure. So I just actually graduated this past weekend from Argosy University Online. And my degree is in organizational leadership. So my focus was on corporate culture and change management, change leadership.
Okay. And do you anticipate bringing some of those practices here to your work at Middlesex Community College?
Each and every day.
Right. Well, one of those changes actually that you're joining us to talk about is an open house that we have coming up on October 17th. And tell us about what this open house is going to entail and what people will find at the open house.
Sure. Well, open houses are a great way for potential students and our community members to kind of check out the college, see what we're about, see what we have to offer, and learn about the courses and different programs that we can help people get trained in. The open house, like you said, will take place on Wednesday, October 17th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So it gives people time to get home from work, have some dinner, and then come by the school to check out all that we have here. It's located at Chapman Hall here at the Middletown campus, and the address is 100 Training Hill Road.
Now, I understand the open house is actually an outgrowth of an event that happens earlier that same day that's been a bit of a tradition at the college called the What Can I Do With a Major In Fair.
Right. Very catchy name. So this event has been happening on campus for some time now, and it's really geared towards helping our current students discover different majors and different fields of study. It's been very successful. We've had a lot of student interest from it. The faculty take a lot of care in setting up a booth that talks about their programs and what they have to offer, and they have a lot of fun with it. Sometimes they dress up in costumes. There's always free giveaways. So we figured why not build upon what we already have in place and replicate that for our community later on that evening.
Okay. Which of the college's programs will be participating in the open house on October 17th?
There are just about all of them. So I think we have over 25 tables, everything from English, math, to our career programs like manufacturing, criminal justice, and some of our non-credit programs like CNA, EMT training, all of those great options.
Okay. Now, Victor, you've been a professor at the college for a long time, and one of the things that you do in events like this is really greet the students and make them feel welcomed at Middlesex.
Sure. I mean, you're there to, of course, to welcome all the students, and if they have any questions about your program or about majoring in what you teach, and then you're there to answer those questions. And sometimes they do want career information. Other times they just happen to like, the subject and want to study it. I mean, that's why I studied history. When people ask me, why did you major in history? I said, well, I probably wouldn't have graduated from college otherwise, because that's pretty much probably all I could have majored in, because I enjoyed it so much and I didn't enjoy anything else. And so, you get all sorts of people asking questions and wanting to find out, and, you try to help them as best you could.
Right. I would imagine, too, that when you do talk to students, part of it is also getting a glimpse of who their professors are going to be. And if they connect with you in some regard, they might feel that, hey, Middlesex is a great place to come to college.
That's exactly right. And it is a great place to come to college. And I hope everybody listening realizes that, and then that we believe in our mission very strongly and in our faculty.
Absolutely, yes. And Sarah, what guests are we expecting to come to the open house?
So we'd love to see a little bit of everyone, right? So high school students, adult learners, military veterans, our business partners that we work with in the community, and even people that have a career path that might be looking to get a jump ahead or to get to that next level and need that degree to get there.
Okay. And one of the things that's on everybody's mind if you're looking at choosing a college is how to pay for it. So will there be some folks from the financial aid office or the business office here to speak with students and their families about the affordability of community college and what kinds of aid and scholarships are available?
For sure. Yeah, that is definitely a key role in what motivates people to get to college, how to pay for it. So we will have financial aid counselors on site. They'll be giving some demonstrations to kind of talk about what you need to do in order to prepare for the financial aspect of college, how to navigate the FAFSA process, and the student loan information and aid.
Okay. And Victor, you yourself have children who are in college right now, and as a parent, what would you be expecting to see at a college open house like the one Middlesex is going to have on October 17th?
Well, I have 3 children, 2 of whom are graduates of Middlesex, and both of those are now at the CSUs, and I have one in 11th grade, and hopefully will be here year after next. As a parent, as a college man, something Sarah mentioned, I think is very important. It's very difficult to figure out. I mean, knowing what you're going to major in, that's, you just see what kind of orientation the person has, what they like coming in. But the financial aspect, it could be very complicated because a lot of people simply aren't accustomed to it, and the terms and how much you pay back and what you can borrow for and what you can't borrow for. And exactly how it works. I'm still trying to figure it out for my older kids. So I think that's somebody who could explain that very simply, I think is very valuable. And I think maybe one of the most valuable people on any campus who needs to be patient, who needs to have that virtue, are the financial aid people, because people are coming in there not knowing anything, and they don't like to have things explained to them in complex financial terms and using jargon. They need someone who could say, this is how much you need, this is how much you borrow, this is how much you got to pay back, this is how much it's going to be a month later on. Right. And I think that's extremely valuable.
Sure. And of course, every family and every student situation is unique. So it's good to get some general information in an event like this, but not really sit down and specifically go over everything.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting that the two of you are here because, Victor, you've been at this college for over 25 years.
Yeah, I'm in my 27th year now.
Okay, and Sarah, you've been with us for just 1 year now. And so, Sarah, being sort of the newcomer, what are your impressions of Middlesex, and how have you become acclimated to everything here?
For sure. The campus here is very family-oriented, and it's been one of the most rewarding places that I've had the pleasure of working. It's a team effort here, so everybody wants everyone else to succeed in any capacity. So we especially take that to heart when it comes to our students. We're very dedicated to the students. The community is very responsive here at the college. So if a student has an issue or if a family member has an issue, there are people here to help and a lot of resources to take advantage of. And that's one of the things that really stands out a lot to me about Middlesex Community College.
Okay. And specifically in your role as the Associate Academic Dean, generally, what are you responsible for at the college?
There's a lot. But primarily, I am there to help the faculty and to help manage the faculty through their day-to-day activities. And I'm also a resource for the students if they have any concerns about their academic path or their classes or what they should do. They can come and see me anytime for that as well.
Okay. And will you be at the open house?
I will be at the open house, yes.
Okay. With your own table?
Probably, yes. We're floating around.
Okay. And Victor, again, for someone who's a historian, parent of college-age students and all, and longtime Middlesex faculty member, if you have like a 30-second commercial for this college, what would you say?
Well, I think what Sarah said is very true. It's very much a family environment. I think our size is at least partly responsible for that, as is, the attitude of people. I've been here for a very long time, and I'm old enough and I've been here long enough that when we bring back people who have retired, I'm sometimes one of the few people who know them. And when I see them, I realize I've been here almost my entire adult life, since I'm practically the day I turned 26. And I see them, and it feels like it's people I've known my entire life. And I think when students come here, they find very friendly people, very nice people willing to help them. And I think that's a quality that the college has always had. And, hopefully, and I see it continuing with a lot of the new staff and the good attitude that they're bringing in.
Okay, great. So, Sarah, one more time, the details of the open house, please.
So the open house happens on Wednesday, October 17th here at our Middletown campus, which is located at 100 Training Hill Road. It starts at 4 and it ends at 7. You can come and go anytime throughout that period. You can find information on our website at mxcc.edu. You'll see it right on the front landing page. Or you can call 860-343-5800 for more information.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you, Sarah Hansen, Associate Academic Dean, and Victor Trier, Professor of History, for joining me today on Middlesex Moments. Thank you both. And thank you all for listening to another edition of Middlesex Moments. As always, you're welcome to join us in person, especially on Open House Day and for our film showing of Operation Pedro Pan here at our main campus at 100 Training Hill Road in Middletown. We also have our Meriden Center located at Platt High School at 220 Coe Avenue, where we offer afternoon and evening classes 4 days a week. And of course, you can visit us online 24/7 at mxcc.edu. For everyone here at Middlesex Community College, I'm Steve Minkler, and we hope to see you again soon.